Vincent Okafor had always been a man of relentless ambition. Born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, he grew up in a bustling household where his parents instilled in him the value of hard work and perseverance. His father, a taxi driver, and his mother, a schoolteacher, worked tirelessly to provide for their family, but Vincent dreamed of more. He dreamed of a life where he could rewrite his family's story, a life where the world would know his name. At 25, Vincent packed his bags and moved to New York City, the land of opportunity. Armed with a degree in finance from the University of Lagos and an unshakable determination, he arrived in the city with little more than a suitcase and a burning desire to succeed. Wall Street, with its towering skyscrapers and fast-paced energy, called to him like a siren. But breaking into the world of high finance was no easy feat, especially for a young man with no connections and a thick Nigerian accent that made some people raise their eyebrows. Vincent's first few months in New York were a humbling experience. He worked odd jobs to make ends meet, delivering food by day and studying the stock market by night. He applied to countless firms, only to be met with rejection after rejection. But Vincent had a mantra: giving up is not an option. He repeated it to himself every morning as he tied his shoes and every night as he lay on the small cot in his shared apartment. One rainy afternoon, while waiting tables at a midtown cafe, Vincent overheard a conversation between two men in suits. They were discussing a merger deal, and Vincent couldn't help but interject with a well-informed opinion. The men were initially taken aback, but one of them, a senior analyst at a mid-tier investment firm, was impressed by Vincent's insight. He handed Vincent his card and told him to call the next day. That call changed everything. Vincent landed an entry-level position at the firm, and though the work was grueling and the hours long, he thrived. He absorbed everything like a sponge, from analyzing market trends to mastering the art of negotiation. His colleagues quickly noticed his sharp mind and tireless work ethic. Within 2 years, Vincent was promoted to associate, and his star began to rise. It was during this time that he met Emily Carter, a fiercely ambitious trader who shared his relentless drive. Emily was a force to be reckoned with, brilliant, bold, and unapologetically competitive. She had grown up in a small town in Ohio, the daughter of a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on. Like Vincent, Emily had clawed her way to the top, refusing to let anyone or anything stand in her way. Their first meeting was anything but romantic. They were assigned to work on a high-stakes deal together, and their initial interactions were marked by heated debates and clashing egos. But as the project progressed, they began to see themselves in each other, 2 outsiders who had fought tooth and nail to earn their place in a world that often seemed determined to keep them out. Their partnership soon blossomed into a deep connection, both personally and professionally. Together, they became an unstoppable team, closing deals that others thought impossible and earning a reputation as the dynamic duo of Wall Street. Vincent's strategic brilliance complemented Emily's bold risk-taking, and their combined talents propelled them to the top of their field. But their journey was far from over. As Vincent and Emily navigated the cutthroat world of finance, they faced new challenges, ruthless competitors, ethical dilemmas, and the ever-present pressure to stay ahead. Yet, through it all, they remained steadfast in their belief that giving up was not an option. Vincent's rise to dominance on Wall Street was not just a testament to his talent but also to his unyielding spirit. He had come to America with nothing but a dream, and through sheer determination, he had turned that dream into reality. And with Emily by his side, he knew that the best was yet to come. Vincent and Emily's success on Wall Street was the stuff of legends. They were the golden couple of finance, their names synonymous with brilliance, ambition, and an unbreakable bond. But as the saying goes, the higher you climb, the harder the fall. And Vincent was about to learn that lesson in the most brutal way possible. It started with a whisper. Vincent had just closed a groundbreaking deal that would cement his firm's dominance in the tech sector. The media hailed him as a visionary, and for the first time in his life, he allowed himself to feel a sense of accomplishment. But amidst the celebrations, something felt off. Emily had been distant lately, canceling plans and staying late at the office. When Vincent asked her about it, she brushed it off, blaming the stress of their latest project. Then, one evening, as Vincent was leaving the office, he overheard two junior analysts talking in the elevator. "Did you hear? Rumor is someone's about to leak insider information on the tech deal. The SEC is already sniffing around." Vincent's blood ran cold. The tech deal was his baby, his crowning achievement. If anything went wrong, it would destroy everything he had built. He confronted Emily that night, demanding to know if she had heard anything. She hesitated, her usually confident demeanor faltering. "Vincent, there's something I need to tell you," she began, her voice trembling. Before she could continue, the doorbell rang. It was the FBI. Vincent was blindsided. The FBI had evidence, emails, phone records, and financial transactions that pointed to insider trading linked to the tech deal. And the trail led straight to Emily. "I didn't have a choice," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "They had me cornered. If I didn't cooperate, they were going to ruin me." "Who?" Vincent demanded, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "The partners," she admitted. "They'd been looking for a way to take you down for months. You were becoming too powerful, too influential. They saw you as a threat." Vincent felt the walls closing in. The people he had trusted, the woman he loved, had betrayed him. The firm he had poured his heart and soul into was now his enemy. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Vincent was suspended pending investigation, his reputation in tatters. The media, once his biggest cheerleader, now painted him as a fraud. His friends and colleagues distanced themselves, afraid of being tainted by association. Even his family back in Nigeria, who had always believed in him, began to doubt. But Vincent refused to give up. Giving up is not an option, he reminded himself. He would fight back, no matter the cost. Vincent knew he couldn't take on the firm alone. He needed allies, people who believed in his innocence and were willing to stand by him. He reached out to an old friend from Lagos, Tund, a tech genius who had made a fortune in Silicon Valley. Tund didn't hesitate. "You've always been a fighter, Vincent," Tund said. "Let's show them what happens when they mess with a Nigerian." Together, they began to unravel the conspiracy. They discovered that the partners had orchestrated the entire scheme, using Emily as a pawn to bring Vincent down. They had planted false evidence, manipulated records, and even bribed officials to ensure Vincent's downfall. But Vincent and Tund had one advantage: the truth. And they were determined to expose it. The climax came at the firm's annual gala, a lavish event attended by the who's who of Wall Street. Vincent, who had been banned from the event, showed up uninvited. The room fell silent as he walked in, his presence commanding attention. He took the stage. His voice steady but filled with emotion. "You tried to destroy me," he began, his eyes scanning the room. "You thought you could break me, silence me, erase everything I've worked for. But you underestimated me. You underestimated the power of resilience, of determination, of truth." He played a recording, a conversation between the partners discussing their plan to frame him. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. The partners, caught red-handed, could only watch in horror as their empire began to crumble. In the aftermath, Vincent was exonerated. The partners were arrested, and the firm was forced to undergo a complete overhaul. Emily, realizing the extent of her betrayal, left Wall Street altogether, seeking redemption in a quieter life. Vincent, however, emerged stronger than ever. He started his own investment firm, one built on integrity, transparency, and a commitment to giving back. He launched initiatives to support young entrepreneurs in Nigeria, ensuring that others like him would have the opportunity to chase their dreams. And through it all, he never forgot his mantra: giving up is not an option. Vincent's redemption was supposed to be the end of his struggles. His new firm, Okafor Capital, was thriving, and his initiatives in Nigeria were changing lives. But just as he thought he had left the shadows of his past behind, a new storm was brewing, one that would drag him into a world far darker than Wall Street. It started with a seemingly innocent investment opportunity. A wealthy Italian businessman named Carlo Moretti approached Vincent with a proposal: a joint venture to develop luxury resorts across Europe and Africa. The deal was lucrative, and Vincent, always looking to expand his empire, was intrigued. But Carlo wasn't just a businessman. He was a high-ranking member of the Italian mafia, and the resorts were a front for money laundering. Vincent, blinded by ambition and the promise of success, ignored the red flags. He convinced himself that he could navigate the deal without getting his hands dirty. For a while, it worked. The resorts were a success, and Vincent's wealth grew exponentially. But then, one fateful night, everything changed. Vincent was in Milan for a meeting with Carlo when he received a call from Tund. "Vincent, you need to get out of there," Tund said, his voice urgent. "I just uncovered something. Carlo's been using your company to funnel millions into illegal activities. The authorities are onto you, and the mafia thinks you're about to flip on them." Before Vincent could respond, the door to his hotel room burst open. Armed men stormed in, their faces masked. They grabbed Vincent, tied him up, and threw him into the back of a van. "Carlo sends his regards," one of the men sneered. Vincent woke up in a dimly lit warehouse, his head pounding. Carlo was there, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the violence of his men. "You've become a liability, Vincent," Carlo said, lighting a cigar. "The authorities are closing in, and I can't afford loose ends." Vincent's mind raced. He knew he had to think fast. "If you kill me, you'll never get your money," he said, stalling for time. "I'm the only one who can access the offshore accounts." Carlo smirked. "You think I'm stupid? I have my people working on it as we speak. But just in case, I'll keep you alive, for now." That night, Vincent managed to escape. Using a piece of broken glass, he cut through his restraints and overpowered a guard. He stole a car and disappeared into the night. His face now plastered across news channels as a wanted man. For months, Vincent was on the run. He moved from city to city, staying in cheap motels and relying on cash to avoid detection. The authorities were after him for his alleged involvement in the mafia's operations, and the mafia wanted him dead. But Vincent wasn't alone. Tund, risking his own safety, stayed in constant contact, helping Vincent navigate the chaos. Together, they worked to clear Vincent's name, uncovering evidence that would expose Carlo's crimes and prove Vincent's innocence. During this time, Vincent also reconnected with Emily. She had been following his story from afar, guilt eating away at her. When she reached out, Vincent was hesitant, but he needed all the help he could get. "I owe you this," Emily said. "Let me make things right." The climax came in a secluded villa in Sicily, where Carlo was hiding out. Vincent, with the help of Tund and Emily, orchestrated a daring plan to confront Carlo and retrieve the evidence that would exonerate him. The villa was heavily guarded, but Vincent's determination was unmatched. Using his wits and a few well-placed bribes, he managed to infiltrate the compound. The confrontation was explosive. Carlo, cornered and desperate, tried to bargain for his life. "You'll never win, Vincent," Carlo spat. "The mafia will never stop coming after you." "Maybe," Vincent replied, his voice steady. "But I'm not afraid of you anymore." In the end, Vincent emerged victorious. He handed over the evidence to the authorities, who launched a massive crackdown on Carlo's operations. The mafia's empire began to crumble, and Vincent's name was finally cleared. Vincent returned to New York a changed man. The experience had humbled him, but it had also strengthened his resolve. He rebuilt Okafor Capital, this time with a renewed focus on ethical business practices. Emily, inspired by Vincent's resilience, joined him in his efforts. Together, they launched a foundation to support victims of organized crime, ensuring that others wouldn't suffer the same fate. As for Tund, he became Vincent's right-hand man, their bond stronger than ever. Vincent had faced betrayal, danger, and the fight of his life, but he had never given up. And as he stood on the balcony of his penthouse, looking out over the city that had tried to break him, he knew one thing for certain: giving up is not an option. Vincent's victory over Carlo and the Italian mafia was supposed to be the end of his battles. But as he soon discovered, the world was far more complicated than he had ever imagined. The mafia was just one piece of a much larger puzzle, a web of corruption that stretched across Wall Street, the American justice system, and even the highest levels of power. Vincent had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Weeks after Carlo's arrest, Vincent began receiving anonymous threats. At first, they were subtle, a note left on his car, a phone call in the middle of the night. But soon, the threats escalated. His office was vandalized, and one of his employees was assaulted. Vincent knew this wasn't just the mafia seeking revenge. Someone else was pulling the strings, someone with far more power and influence. Through Tun's hacking skills, they uncovered a shocking truth. Carlo had been working with a powerful Wall Street syndicate, a secret alliance of bankers, politicians, and law enforcement officials who manipulated the financial system for their own gain. This syndicate had been using the mafia to launder money and eliminate competition. With Carlo gone, they saw Vincent as the next threat to their empire. The syndicate struck hard and fast. They framed Vincent for a series of financial crimes, planting evidence that linked him to illegal transactions and insider trading. The media, once again, turned against him, painting him as a greedy opportunist who had used his success to exploit the system. Vincent was arrested and thrown into a high-security prison, his assets frozen and his reputation destroyed. The syndicate thought they had won. They thought Vincent was finished. But they had underestimated him. Prison was hell, but Vincent refused to break. He used his time behind bars to strategize, forming alliances with other inmates who had their own grudges against the system. Among them was Marcus, a former whistleblower who had been silenced by the syndicate years ago. With Marcus's help, Vincent began to piece together the syndicate's operations. He learned about their secret meetings, their offshore accounts, and their connections to powerful figures in Washington. Meanwhile, on the outside, Emily and Tund worked tirelessly to clear Vincent's name. Emily used her connections in the financial world to gather evidence, while Tund hacked into the syndicate's servers, uncovering incriminating documents that exposed their crimes. Vincent knew he couldn't wait for the legal system to save him. The syndicate had too much influence, and time was running out. With the help of Marcus and a few trusted inmates, he orchestrated a daring escape. The plan was risky, but it worked. Vincent slipped out of the prison under the cover of darkness, disappearing into the night. For weeks, he stayed off the grid, moving from safe house to safe house as he prepared for his final move. Vincent's revenge was swift and merciless. He leaked the syndicate's secrets to the press, exposing their corruption to the world. The evidence was undeniable: bank records, emails, and even video footage of their illegal activities. The fallout was immediate. High-profile bankers and politicians were arrested, and the syndicate's empire crumbled. The public, outraged by the revelations, demanded justice. But Vincent wasn't done yet. He wanted to ensure that no one could ever manipulate the system like this again. He testified before Congress, advocating for sweeping reforms to the financial and justice systems. His testimony was powerful and unflinching, a rallying cry for accountability and transparency. In the end, Vincent emerged victorious. The syndicate was dismantled, and the reforms he championed began to take shape. His name was cleared, and his reputation restored. But Vincent's victory came at a cost. He had lost friends, endured unimaginable pain, and sacrificed pieces of himself along the way. Yet, through it all, he had never given up. At a press conference following his exoneration, Vincent stood before the world, a symbol of resilience and hope. "This was never just about me," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "It was about standing up to a system that thrives on inequality and corruption. It was about proving that no matter how powerful your enemies are, giving up is not an option." Vincent returned to Okafor capital, but his focus had shifted. He used his wealth and influence to create opportunities for those who had been marginalized by the system. He launched scholarships for underprivileged students, funded startups in developing countries, and became a vocal advocate for ethical business practices. Emily stayed by his side, their bond stronger than ever. Together, they built a legacy that went beyond wealth and success, a legacy of integrity, courage, and compassion. Vincent's journey was a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of standing up for what is right. He had faced betrayal, danger, and seemingly insurmountable odds, but he had never lost sight of his values. His story served as a reminder that the fight for justice is never easy, but it is always worth it. And no matter how dark the path may seem, giving up is never an option.